Okay, and you see what I mean? I mean they're out of parallel because you get front to the back, and obviously then when you do that and you're running it, and it's going to have a tendency to rub on here. And sometimes you can back it off a little bit and get it not to do that, but it can still like be a perpetual problem. The thing to remember with the older ones is they weren't ever really designed to run in that configuration because it's kind of silly anyway. Um, Simply based on the fact that they this gear combination, largest sprocket in back, largest sprocket in front, um, it would be better attained by going to the smaller one here and then a more middle sprocket to try to keep the chain as straight as possible so it's not having to do those offset parallels like that. So do not like beat yourself in the head trying to make that work because it's really a chain ratio that is just not necessary. Okay. And they weren't really ever designed to actually always work. Maybe you could just get them, but it's a silly gear to be in, okay? Because you really should, if that's the combination of gearing you want, you should be shifting to the inner chain ring, and then pick something in the middle. They just weren't designed to be that far off. You know, a couple of two or three is about it, and then you should shift to the different chain ring so you can get the chain is straighter. It's just an interesting point to know because um, it's one of those things. When I was younger, I used to mess with them, trying to go, oh, I just can't get it, just can't get it. You go, well, you were never supposed to be able to get it because it's a stupid gear to be running in anyway. Newer stuff, they've got like this particular one's a 12 speed, but the newer stuff they've added more, and they've got three chain rings in front, and they're indexed and everything. They're more, they can handle that better, but still, even you get into some stupid arrangements that you just go, don't run it there, just run it in a different, and then you don't have the problem with the rubbing. So that was something to talk about. Another thing that when you get into working on these, you remember with these, if you have to take the crank arms off, is that one side, the left side, should be a left hand nut or bolt, depending upon it. Either it'll be a bolt that goes in or it's a nut that goes on it. Um, Assuming somebody, if it's ever been completely apart, it's possible to swap that axle around the wrong way, but it probably hasn't been apart, so it's like that. So remember that one side, and it should be the left side, will be a left hand thread, which means opposite direction. Okay. So don't break anything trying to loosen it up the traditional way on the wrong side. And I'm pretty sure almost all bikes are like that. Um, However, when you ever get, if you want to take these off, now they make special pullers and everything that you take off this dust cap, and you get to the bolt underneath and stuff. Um, but you don't really have to go buy a big special puller for it. Um, you can use a puller. You can get cheap ones at like Harbor Freight, like a jaw type puller that you can grab it and then you run it in here. A cheap way to do it, however, though, let me grab the tool, is to use one of these, slang or colloquially known as a pickle fork. But what it is, it's a tie rod remover for an automobile, and it's just a wedge shape like this, and it's designed to, and it's heavy, and it's designed to go in, and where you have to put something, and you beat it in there, and the wedge goes in, and it goes pop, and it pops two pieces apart. You can use these usually on bikes. Again, I think this one was like $5 at a cheap, like a Harbor Freight or something like that, or you could probably just, you know, I assume we have Harbor Freight in Canada or something like that, the cheap Chinese stuff. You can use these. Now, granted, they might mar stuff a little bit, but if you're dealing with old used bikes, a couple of nicks in here and a couple of nicks on the back of the crank arm is just not, like, who's going to know? Um, and like I said, you can just slide it in. It's always a little trickier on this side. You may want to take the chain rings off before you do it because it will interfere a little bit. But usually you can get one of these in here, and then you can just beat it in and it'll eventually just pop it off because these are on with a taper fit. And don't be surprised at the amount of beating you have to do to get one of those things loose, okay? Because the wedge, the taper fit like that, it really sticks like hard. And you can really, sometimes you gotta beat and beat and beat, but it will eventually just pop off. Um, it helps sometimes if you can get a lot of pressure in it. screwdriver in here. Oh, actually, let me swap bikes here real quick. Okay. These are my Schwinn's. Okay, yeah, you can see this well enough. And this is, like I said, some of these will have a bolt that goes in it. Some of them, they're a stud and there's a nut on it. And then, you know, this goes on like that. And see, and you can get a better picture of it, you know, and you go in and you bang and it knocks it off. But once they've been on her for a while, they're pretty damn tight, so they don't come off that easy. If you absolutely cannot get the damn thing to come off, it can help sometimes if once you get some pressure in there, say I beat this in there real tight and it's not going anywhere, take the bolt. It's harder to do when there's without tearing stuff up. If it's got a stud on it with a nut, it's a little trickier. But if you got the bolt, put the bolt in and then just back it off like just barely like a thread, okay? So you don't want enough that you could hit it and bend it. And then take a hammer, you know, piece of metal or some sort, you know. Nah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, a punch or something, just a solid piece of metal. Put it in there and whack it with a hammer. And what happens is that shock of hitting it will actually cause it to kind of flex and it'll break the taper loose and it'll pop off. But even with all those tricks, they can be a real pain in the ass sometimes if you want to get that far into taking it apart. So, just something to know.